Welcome everybody. This is going to be a brief video about this spreadsheet. It's a super handy tool. It was created by Matt Katz and is based on STUL and UMF. And this is a sheet that we sought permission to automate, and he gave us that permission, so we added some minor automation where you just tab through, or the scrollable list, or the print button. So this is just going to be about getting the information into the sheet, and then a couple tabs we added for research, and no real correcting, just so you're familiar with getting your recipes in here and using this maybe for long-term storage and or progressions and modification. So we think it's very useful. We use it for our recipes and the studio recipes. So here's a quick video about how do you get them in there and some of the features. So let's run the video. Well, welcome back. Today we got a real simple video, and that some of you have this spreadsheet that was created by Matt Katz and still is available for download on his website. And then some of you know the backstory to this, that we talked to him. We got permission to modify this with respect to some Visual Basic code, mainly convenience items. So let's see. Today we're going to get a glaze in, and here's one I picked. It's a Ron Roy Cone 6, and we're going to show you how to get it in here. And first step for me is to hit the timestamp button twice, and that'll pop the timestamp in there. And now I've got a solid date on when I started on this thing, and it's a Cone 6 recipe, so that goes there. Anytime I want to go from field to field, I hit the tab key. That's part of the automation, and it moves me from field to field. So next field is the name, and so I'm going to say Ron Roy example, and actually I'm going to go spell it right. And then I'm going to add version 1. And again, when you tab, you go to the next appropriate field. So tab is like gold in this little piece of automation. It's pretty rough coding, so not anything special. My first ingredient was EPK. I hit the E, and EPK pops up for me, so all the more better because I hate typing. And then tab gets me to the right field. NFSI, I type in any, and lo and behold, it pops up NFSI for me. 3134 frit is next, and that is 13.4 in our example, and whiting is 14.7, and then silica, and again I don't have to type the whole word silica, is 26. So what do we got? We got our recipe stored. We got our first version of this thing. We got a name on it. We have a representation of where it is approximately in STUL. And STUL is kind of a visual representation of what your glazes are or are expected to do chemically. And then if we go around the horn, we've got silica to alumina ratio at 7.41, which is generally glossy. How much silica, how much boron, how much alumina, and all the fluxes. And those things have more meaning as you learn more about glazes. The sheet also shows you the expected boron needs according to Katz, and I think he's derived this. So here's my Cone 6, here's where my boron is, here's where his projected ideal boron is, but he provides a range in red that's acceptable. And then on page 2 of this, it shows you the chemical composition of the glaze. So as you learn more about glazes, you realize it doesn't matter where I get my silica from necessarily, it ends up to be silica. So in this case it shows you the apportionment and how much you're getting from each ingredient, and EPK is 10.93, NFSI is 14.74, frit is 6.35, in this case silica itself is 25.62. So if I wanted to modify where or how much silica I have in this recipe, I would probably just look to the silica line. if I wanted to increase my alumina after I learn a little about glazes, then it would be probably easier to do it in the EPK, because I would need more naphtha and crazy amount of silica to get alumina. So this can help later as you learn more about glazes. It makes more sense and easier to do some changes on them. Next thing, I think at this point we like this. We're going to save this. Actually, I probably save, let's say I'm working on clear glazes. I would give it a name. Try not to overwrite the master worksheet, but I would give it a name like clear glazes I'm working on this week or whatever. And then easy one-click print, and it'll format it for me, and I just hit the print button, and it can print it, or it can print it to PDF, and I can email it to myself, so when I get to the studio I have a copy of it. Last little bit of help here. The default batch size is 100. You can make that whatever you want, so then you don't have to calculate it yourself, and the spreadsheet is probably more accurate than calculating it by hand, so that can be changed. And then let's move to a what if this is my example? Still have that misspelled. You guys didn't correct me. So I still have that as my version 1. What if I wanted to... Oh, we haven't talked about colorants. This is a clear glaze, so there are none, but if I had some, maybe I would have to have copper carbonate or something like that. So copper carbonate, and let's say at 3%. So now I have a colored glaze, and if I wanted to work on a progression, I may go to my next tab, copy all my chems over. It copies everything except for the version. Maybe I call this 2. And if I like the colorant, I can copy that over, and maybe I'm doing a color progression, so I'm going to do that. So it's a pretty handy device. Maybe I'm really working on this and I want to take this gloss glaze and make it matte, and after I studied a little about glazes, I know that I could decrease the silica amount, get closer to 5:1, and that little dot's going to move closer to matte. I have now 5.41:1 silica to alumina ratio, which should make this a matte glaze. So that's a little bit about the sheet and how to get stuff in there. A few extras that we added. The Chem Research tab. As you get more familiar with what you're doing, you may want to find similar frits or similar clays, or you may be looking for a clay with the highest amount of silica. And this tab lets you sort everything out and then compare it easily. And then it does it by the major categories of what we have for materials, and then of course you could just clear it and return it to its original order. So pretty handy to use. Color Research, which is a bunch of people have contributed to this over time, so these are general guidelines. I want this yellow ochre. Is there a way that I can get it? And I can get these suggestions, and then of course nothing's guaranteed. You have to test and see if that's what you get. But I think we covered every aspect about this. My suggestion would be to go ahead and save this as a name of a group of glazes you might be working on, and here's a good example of this. I think we have all the studio glazes in this format, so if I go through, I can just look at each glaze, and then over time, if I have to make corrections or additions or whatever, I have it as an electronic copy, and then of course I have progressions that I might be working on saved under glazes I'm working on this week. So pretty handy. It's totally free, and that's a little bit how you get the info in there and some of the things you can do with it. So hopefully you find that useful, and we'll see you in the next video.